All right, how we doing out there, brothers and sisters? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Revolution podcast. And once again, when we say Black Revolution podcast, we're not talking about a physical revolution. No, we're talking about the revolution that needs to take place in the mind of our people. So welcome back once again to I think this is the fourth episode, and tonight we have a very serious topic to cover. One that has disturbed me ever since I learned about it. And it continues to bother me. It baffles me. It causes me anger due to the injustices of this case and the way that it has been handled by some authorities. And we're going to get into that tonight. So the topics that we will cover is the autopsy report, the preliminary autopsy report performed on Nolan'S remains by a Washington, D.C. coroner. And we're going to talk about the decomposition factor, missing neck components, red discolorization to the back of the head, and was there any foul play? So that's the gist of what we're going to be talking about today, brothers and sisters. So stay with me. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, because we're going to be covering serious topics here concerning Black people, African-American people, African people, news of all sorts, history, things of that nature. We're going to get into all of that. So before we get into everything, let me just give you a little recap of what happened if you just happen to live on Mars and you don't know what's going on. So first of all, we all know that unfortunately our little brother, Nolan'S, he died mysteriously on July 4th, 2026 after going out with friends for a 4th of July celebration on an island in Mississippi called Horn Island. Wells went out with friends but did not make it back home. Instead, the body of the 18-year-old washed up on the northern tip of Horn Island 2 days later. According to civil rights lawyer Ben Crump, the autopsy conducted in Washington by former Washington, D.C. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Robert Mitchell came back as inconclusive concerning the cause of the teen's death. Okay, at this moment, the doctor of Washington, D.C., who performed the autopsy, the second one, paid for by Colin Kaepernick, by the way, let's acknowledge that. It's inconclusive as to the cause of death of Nolan'S. But there are some very important things to note. What the coroner did find, what was his idea, his conclusion about foul play? We're going to look at that. Decomposition factors, we're going to look at that. And from those factors, I would like to look at one that stands out very brightly, more than any other. And I'm going to talk to you about that. We're going to go through this together. Just stay with me. The first factor, or the first finding of Dr. Mitchell, was that Nolan had some red discolorization to the back of his head. I think he said about 12 by 8 inches of a focal point. All right. That was in the back of his head. We're going to listen to this clip and then we're going to come back and talk some more.
Of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8 inch focal area of red discoloration in the deep soft tissues overlaying the occipital bone. And he talked about how he found red discoloration when he cut open into the back of his head towards the occipital bone, and he saw the red discoloration, and we actually saw the pictures of it. It's significant. You can't help but notice, why is this dark red here in the back of his head? And so he was important to note that.
So he says Nolan's remains in the head area had a big wound, discolorization, red discolorization, about 12 by 8 inches, a focal point of 12 to 8 inches, just above the occipital bone. Now, this is very important for me. As someone who has been following this case rather diligently, I've been following on news. I saw the press conference in Chicago. I've witnessed the funeral. I saw the press conference right after the funeral. I've been on TikTok and other platforms listening to what people are saying and gathering all the information online. And this head injury, well, I won't call it an injury, quotations, this red discolorization to the back of Nolan's head is very important for me. And I'm going to explain to you why. We were out on TikTok, myself and others. We spent countless hours talking about the Nolan Wells case, countless hours up into the wee hours of the morning, me and other TikTokers. And I gathered a lot of information from different places and different pages on TikTok. One thing that struck me very hard was that one night I was on this platform, and I won't mention the platform because I don't know if they want to be mentioned, but if they hear it, then of course. But we were up there doing investigative work, right? We understood that there were pictures that were put out. The most famous picture of them all in the beginning was the one of Nolan and his 3 buddies on the back of the boat, beers in their hand, hugging each other, and they're riding out, taking a flick. Okay, we know that picture. The next important picture for me was the one at this party. You can see Nolan in the pool with other people in the party. He's staring back at the camera. To me, he doesn't look comfortable. I don't know what was going on there, what the context is. But that was number 2. But then a couple of days ago, another picture showed up. One that could have filled the gap, because there was a gap in between Nolan's friends and the girl who he was supposed to have stayed back with on the island. Remember, the friend said, last time we saw Nolan, he said he was going back to spend time. I think the girl's name was Amy. He was going to stay on the island with her. They caught up with Amy, if that's her name, and they asked her. She said, no, he told me he was going back with his friends. So there's a time gap, right? The boys said they left the island at around 4:30 to get out of there. Maybe some problem with the boat or whatever, but they left at 4:30. So there's a gap. And this one photo that came out, the newest one, which I believe fills that vacuum, is of Nolan on the back of a boat. It appears that most people are saying he was going in to get a drink, some beverage out of a cooler. He could have been tying the boat off. He could have been untying it, getting ready to jump on and have a ride out back to the mainland. We don't know the context, right? We know the boat is Little Daddy. I think that's the name of the boat. You can see the writing in the back. Now, I said this area of about 12 by 8 inches to the back of the head, this red discolorization is important for me. Now, why? Everyone has seen the photos. If you haven't, go back and observe. The party, they tell us, took place on a different night, either before or after the 4th of July. That's in heavy dispute with me. Why? Go back to the first picture when Nolan is riding out with his buddies on the back of the boat. Observe what Nolan is wearing, light blue shorts. Come back to the new picture that was found of Nolan in the back of the boat trying to get a beverage, tying off or untying the string to the boat, and this adult man can be seen on the boat. What does Nolan have on? Same blue shorts, right? So we're talking about the same day, 4th of July. And you can see that that's Nolan. You can see the hair. You can see his physique. That's him. Now let's go to the party that they say occurred other than not on the 4th of July. When you look into the picture and you look in the water, look at Nolan's shorts. Same blue shorts, light blue shorts. To me, this seems like everything happened in the same day on the 4th of July. I could be wrong. It's just my observation, right? If anybody else can say anything to contradict it, that's fine. I just want to get to the truth. Here's the problem. Here's what's important, right? Very important. Someone, I don't know who was supposed to be a witness at that party that Nolan was in, gave a very detailed account of what happened on a social media platform. They said they observed an argument in a fight. They observed Nolan getting into an argument. He got beat up. At the end of the melee, they said they saw Nolan Wells down on his knees, bleeding, gasping for air. And then the mom came out at about 1 a.m. She had been drinking herself, and she ran everybody out and threatened to call the police because of the unrest, right? So if this is the truth, and it seems like it's true to me, because we now have an autopsy, a preliminary autopsy, which provides us with some red discoloration to the back of Nolan's head. Okay, if Nolan is gasping for air at the time this person saw him, that's consistent with that wound. Not only is the area covering the occipital bone, but you also have an organ back there called the medulla. The medulla. Why is this important? The medulla is responsible for your breathing. You know, as human beings, we don't breathe on our own. If we did, we would die. We would forget to breathe. So the brain does the breathing for you. The particular area in the brain is the medulla, and it's right in the back of the head where Nolan has this 12 by 8 inch focal point of red discolorization. So if they saw him gasping for air, that's consistent with that wound or that area. If it happened to damage the medulla, the breathing mechanism in the back of Nolan's head, that would explain why he was gasping for air, because he could no longer breathe on his own. This is just my little analysis. Not saying I'm correct. I'm just like everyone else, speculating and putting things up, educated guesses, right? So a little bit of biology 101 will explain to you what the medulla is, where it is, and what it's responsible for. Now, what even brings it home more for me about that head injury, now I want to say that there's something suspicious about that head injury, especially on the part of the Mississippi coroner. And I'm going to tell you why. First, let's listen to the bite, and then we'll be right back.
In this preliminary report for further investigation, it is important to reiterate that the finding could not have been observed in the first autopsy because the posterior head and neck dissection were not performed.
Wow. There we have it. You see? What does Ben Crump say about the finding of the discoloration to the back of the head? What does he say? He says that the doctor Roger Mitchell noted that it's very important, right? He noted that the head discoloration is significant enough to be highlighted in this report because it wasn't reported or observed due to no dissection performed to the back of the head area by the Mississippi coroner. So what he's saying is that the Mississippi coroner, you know, they dissected a lot of Nolan, probably more than a little, but for some reason the dissection to this area, right, was not done. For some reason, they didn't go in and disturb this area and dissect it and see what they could find. We're wondering why. Also, so Nolan, they said he was beat up at the party. He was gasping for air. Another thing that could contribute to that is if Nolan was choked, perhaps some bones in his throat could have been broken, preventing air from passing through. And I have another bite that I want you to listen to. And before I play the bite, I'll read this. It says the autopsy was conducted on July 10th, and according to Crump, important parts of Nolan's body were retained by the Mississippi coroner's office, such as aspects of his throat. So let's listen to this soundbite, and then we'll be back.
Another limitation faced by this forensic pathologist was the absence of the anterior internal neck structures. The trachea and the laryngeal cartilage the thyroid horn and the hyoid bone were not received with the body. So he's saying that the throat was not received with the body when he got Nolan Wells' body in Washington, D.C. to perform the second autopsy.
Okay, so the throat area of Mr. Wells' body was retained by Mississippi. And they have said that this is a routine thing that Mississippi does. Even the coroner in Washington said he would have retained the throat area as well, because there you could tell further if there was any strangulation, breakage, or damage to any bones that would cause an obstruction to breathing. So it's kind of strange that we have two areas of the body. One is retained and the other was not even dealt with. Right? No dissection to see if there was any force blunt trauma to the back of the head. That wasn't done, right? On the part of Mississippi. But when it's done in Washington by Dr. Robert Mitchell, he finds this mysterious red discolorization in the back of Nolan Wells' head. May he rest in peace. This is fishy to me. Very, very fishy. And we can continue. Now, I want you to understand something, my audience. We cannot rule out foul play at this point. What the second autopsy in Washington also revealed was that there were no bruises visibly on the body. And I know there are a lot of people online see, oh my God, there's no bruises. That's it. Case closed. He drowned. No. That's not the case. What played a role in the possible of why the doctor or the pathologist in Washington could not have seen these bruises is decomposition. It has been said or stated by Mr. Trump that because of decomposition, from being in the water so long, if he had any bruises anywhere on his body that would have indicated some type of foul play, you could not observe them because the body was so decomposed. Let's take a listen to that bite right now.
He talked about the second autopsy performed on Nolan Wells revealed marked decompensation or changes. Marked decompensation can obscure the presence and absence of bruising on the skin surface, especially during a second autopsy examination. What he's saying, because the body was so decomposed that you couldn't tell if there was bruises or abrasions on the body when he received it on the 10th of July.
So there you have it, brothers and sisters. When the coroner received the body on the 10th of July, which is 6 days after the 4th of July, the body was so decomposed that if there were initial bruises that would have indicated some type of foul play, you could not see them. They would not have been visible. So you cannot count out foul play. What we can do is continue to highlight that no dissection of the back of the head to search for any blunt force trauma was performed. We can highlight that certain aspects of the throat were retained by Mississippi, and we don't know yet if there was any broken bones or damage to cartilage or anything like that would have indicated throat injury, asphyxiation, whatever. We just don't know. And I would hope that we could get the district attorney, or if we have to go to a higher federal court, to get Mississippi's coroner to give those parts of Nolan Wells's throat area to the coroner in Washington so he can do his observation and examination and see what he comes up with. I would hope that we will be able to force Mississippi to give that part of Nolan's body to this man in Washington so we can observe for ourselves if there was any foul play. But right now, this is still looking very, very fishy. The autopsy is inconclusive. Doesn't mean that Nolan was not unalived. Doesn't mean he wasn't drowned, purposely by people held in the water. Anything could have happened. What we do know is we have that red discolorization to the back of his head, and that could have caused his medulla to stop functioning, and you would have seen Nolan gasping for air like it has been reported he was doing at that party on that night of July 4th going on into the 5th. So that's going to do it for my little assessment here tonight. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to stay up tonight, do some more research. I'll be back probably tomorrow or the next day and with more information. And once again, like I have said, if you have not subscribed here at the Black Revolution Podcast, please go ahead and do so. Hit the like button. Do that, because we're going to cover this case. We're going to cover other cases. We're going to bring you world news. And one thing's for sure. We will not, I pledge on this station here, the Black Revolution Podcast, where the revolution takes place in the mind, that I will never stop searching for answers about what happened to Nolan Wells. I promise you that. I swear by my honor as a man, I will not rest until we understand what happened to Nolan Wells, even if it's till my dying day. This is your brother Steve here at the Black Revolution Podcast, saying peace and love. Until next time, I bid you peace.